You're live.
I'm ready when you are. I am going to call to order the Three Lakes Town Board of Supervisors regular meeting for January 5th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. We're going to start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I please get a report on the agenda posting?
The Three Lakes Town Board of Supervisors regular meeting agenda for January 5th, 2021 was posted in accordance with Town's number.
Thank you. I'd be looking for one of the supervisors to make a motion to the agenda, please.
I'll make a motion.
Order. Motion by Bohm, second by Starkey. Is there any further discussion? If there is none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, 5-0. I only have one announcement. Declarations of candidacy filed for the spring election. Who do we have to mention?
Everybody came in. I had
Everybody, all in
Jeff
the water.
Ross,
So we have the treasurer, myself, Bohm, Polkowski, and Kip Soder, correct? Good. The minutes from the last meeting were distributed to supervisors in advance. Does anyone have any changes or suggestions? Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion.
I reviewed the minutes and would like to make a motion that people ask for the regular meeting of December 5th.
Motion by Polkowski, second by Slazewski. Is there any further discussion? If there is none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, 5-0. This 6-A was actually supposed to say Chairman Bress discussed town board expectations of planning commission and the town board, but since it doesn't say town board, I am going to discuss what I talked to the plan commission about last night, but just remind everybody that it's the exact same thing with us. The plan commission has had a tendency, at times, as have we, to get hung up on certain things that come before them and take too deep of an analyzation and things that are outside their scope. And by what I mean by that is, the most recent example was a daycare where they started to analyze the safety of the building, the safety of the children at the daycare, and that's all handled by a state licensing agency. That would be the equivalent, in my opinion, of us looking at a conditional use permit or an ARP for a restaurant and asking if it has a fire suppression or a roof that's the code. And that falls outside of our scope. So what I wanted to remind the plan commission, and I think the same thing pertains to us, is that we only take a look at things, and one of the examples tonight is the administrative review permit for a tower. We have two questions to ask ourselves as a plan committee and a town board, and that comes from statute. That is, does it follow our ordinances? Yes or no? If it follows all of our ordinances and doesn't violate anything there, and then secondly, does it follow our long-term comprehensive plan? That's really the only two things we're looking at. To look at it any deeper than that really is outside the scope of what it is. Zoning is handled by the county. There's state statutes that handle things like safety. There's additional licensing that handle other things. So you already heard this last night. It's just a reminder. I gave this same reminder to the plan commission. And that was it. So if anyone has any comments, questions, concerns, otherwise we can move on. Nada? All right. You guys are handed a packet for an administrative review permit for Vorpal. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Which is a tourist rooming house out on Russell Road. This was already an existing condominium, so this shouldn't have been a difficult one. Extensive packet, like they all are, but these are mostly FYI. This is just our recommendation to the county. I'd be looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve the first meeting house application is presented for Brian Warple.
Motion by Slazewski. Second by Starkey. Of note, I think this was 6-0 or 5-0 at Plan Commission, man. You remember?
7-0.
7-0. I don't know where my Plan Commission notes are. I have. Regardless, it was passed through the Plan Commission unanimously. We have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? If there is none, I'd ask all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Second one here is another administrative review permit. We received a lot of information on this. I see sitting in front of us this evening, the clerk or secretary.
Next one,
Did I miss
city
it?
administrative permit. So I just want to make sure we're doing the top for North Staff, is that what?
Yeah, sorry.
That's what-
I meant to say, the conditional use permit for Northwoods Connect. You guys have a chart in front of you that you must have given us just tonight, which is basically all the people we heard from. A lot of people sent direct emails to just me. Some people started copying the entire town board. We heard from Tony and Kathy Tillman. Again, what this comes down to is we have to objectively look at it from, does it fulfill all of the requirements of the town? Which are, like I just said, does it violate any ordinances? And then secondly, is it consistent with our long-term comprehensive plan? There's a couple of things in the long-term comprehensive plan that might suggest it isn't exactly what we're looking for, but then on the contrary, there's a handful of things that say it's exactly what we're looking for. Technology, economic development. So in my opinion, it's a gray area as far as the long-term comprehensive plan goes, because it's a 20-year-old plan that hasn't really kept up with the times, with how quickly technology changes. So I guess I would defer to you guys for opinions based on what we've discussed already. If there is none, then I would just be looking for a motion.
I have a question. Why is this tough? And,
I said art.
It's under art.
Actually, on the zoning, I said art because I read that zoning thing today or yesterday.
Right, so I'm not sure why they applied as a conditional use permit originally, and they revised it. Why they're not changing it.
I actually thought it was supposed to be an art for zoning. Because the zoning,
Exactly, it's not fitting when Brian looked up the details of that 954D, I think it is, all under an art. Not at all.
it's not correct.
And there's some bad language. Single family residential zoning from the county. It says it's actually prohibited.
No, it doesn't. It says it's prohibited under, we'll say shoreland, 958.
This says 954, which is mobile towers.
If you read the first part of it says it's okay in single family residential unless referred to under whether it was 958 or 954.
954, which is mobile towers. Cellular towers.
But this is a cellular technology.
Right, so it's prohibited. The way I read that, it's how I read it.
I read that the opposite.
And again, it's not our place, I don't feel. Well, is that single family administrative permit?
Yeah, I read the art under single family, which is sub C sub 2, right? Or sub 3.
And it's confusing.
Yeah, okay, so what's 954?
954,
954 is it should be an art though.
that's,
Again, this goes back to the county though. The county is the one responsible for the permitting. So
and I 100% agree. I just, it's a question.
go back to that
That's
section.
954 mobile towers, right? Well, we'll go to the leaders. It's not listed as a condition, something you can apply for a conditional use permit. Listed as something you apply for.
The zoning says it has to be an art.
You know, whether it's irrelevant, whether it's my feeling that I believe a tower should be single family residential or not. That's the, when I become its own, my feelings don't really matter. When the county says it should be an art, it's confusing as the way it is. And I don't want to delay the process by,
See, I'm not following, I don't see anywhere here where the 954 where it's prohibited.
it's not, it's prohibited in single family residential. Yeah, read number 3.
I did, I read it several times.
Maybe the, I
It
don't know.
says telephone and public utility lines and transmission facilities, period. Communication structures regulated pursuant to section 954 are prohibited in this district except for government are prohibited pursuant to section 954. I did read that backwards. Telephone
I did
and public
too, the first
utility.
Yeah, I just couldn't figure out why is it prohibited and under this.
But why are they even saying it? Why is it there if it's prohibited? Why is it there and not under prohibited?
Telephone and public utility lines and transmission facilities, period, are permitted within a park. Telephone and public utility lines and transmission facilities, period, are permitted within our.
Okay.
Communication structures regulated pursuant to 954 are prohibited, except for government owned. So I'm still confused on the same thing I was confused about earlier. So what is this considered? Telephone, public utility line, and transmission facility? I don't know what this is considered.
I don't either. Doesn't say.
Broadband internet service.
Go back, where is it? It's chapter 9 on here again.
And I did not read that in its entirety. Sorry.
Mobile tower siting. What did this first one say is prohibited under 954? Purpose and intent. Purposes are just regulated by permit. Was it saying it's prohibited, permitted, or not in single family? I'm gonna defer to the county. That's county zoning.
You're right.
That's for them to interpret. I guess knowing what we just didn't describe very well, which I already read this afternoon, but now I'm more confused by it than I was then. But I actually read it like it was okay this afternoon, and now I'm not sure.
And again, I don't think it's our first question.
It isn't. It's up to the county to decide. So I guess I would be looking for a motion from somebody where I could make it basically just. You guys want me to make a motion?
Yeah.
And see what happens, and then we can discuss it.
Sure, I have things I wanted to say, but.
Go for it, because I'm unsure what I want to say here.
So, I don't think that, aside from what you said originally, where we need to stay focused on what our purpose is. Aside from that, my view is that each one of us were elected to represent you guys. That's why we're here, is to represent our people. And we've heard from our people, whether they're year-round residents or part-time people or whatever, and our job is to represent them. And my fear is, if we just say, well, it's up to the county. I know you're not saying that, because I'm not directing this towards you, I'm saying to you guys. If we just put our hands up and say, well, it's up to the county. And the message we're sending to the county is we either don't care or we're in favor of it. And it's clear with the correspondence that we've had that we do care. And some people are in favor of it and some people are opposed. So I think if we're going to pass this back to the county, which I think we should for clarification and suggesting, I just think it's important that the county knows that there's an awful lot of people in that area that have a whole lot of concern about this. And the very fact that there's an application for conditional permit, or if it's an administrative review permit, that very fact clarifies this doesn't fit single family residential. Because if it did, they wouldn't need the cover.
Correct.
So,
And you can't say it doesn't fit though, because that's why they require an arbor account. Because they say it's basically a conditional use.
right. And then my final point is, and I'm neither for nor against this. I'm only trying to do my job as a supervisor to represent our people. On the cover sheet of every single thing that we get from Oneida County, it says, and I quote, "Enclosed, please find a copy of the revised conditional use permit for the project described below. Please have the Three Lakes Planning Commission and Town Board review and advise what objections they may have." Now, I'm not a lawyer for the county or for anyone else, and it's not my job to vet out the validity of whatever, but it is my job to represent. I want to say those things. So, that being said, that's all.
I just want to build off that kind of goes off on the discussion Jeff and I had last night. I think my opinion is in general, I think Jeff did some good diligence, just reminding us of how we need to handle these situations. I was thinking a lot like you too though, Jeff, and one suggestion that came up last night was that if we make a recommendation, whether it's for or against, irrelevant. But I think it was actually Jeff himself that suggested, let's make sure we put those points in there. If we make a motion, whether it's for or against, we can make our motion. But in that verbiage, make it very clear, maybe to your point, Supervisor Bowman, that oh, there is a lot of mixed emotion.
Right.
Or maybe to Chairman's point or Brian's point that here's what we suggest, but note the town of Three Lakes is unclear why this is a cup and not an art.
Yeah.
Maybe making those points is more beneficial than what we thought about in the past.
Right.
Because maybe that is our formal opportunity to advise the county, like you're suggesting.
And just my final comment on this. I've heard from several people that this is fun. If that's true, then we might as well deny it. Because at least then, if they're gonna do it, then they would know how our people felt. If it doesn't matter, I guess it doesn't matter. It matters to me.
I personally don't think that you could, because in my opinion, what you just read here says the Three Lakes Plan Commission and Town Board review and advise what objections they may have. I don't think that we could raise objections that aren't based on ordinance or long-term comprehensive plan. Just because somebody says, I don't want something, doesn't mean that it can't go there. If it follows the rules and the laws, you can't, in my opinion, it's not the town should not stop that. And that applies to anything. If somebody wants to build a restaurant or a gas station, or they're doing everything by the letter of the law, and somebody just raises a ruckus, in my opinion, that's not the way the intent is.
But we're a link in the chain. That's what I'm saying.
That's fine, but well, then somebody make a motion.
When you say ordinance, you're talking town ordinance,
I'm talking a town
not
ordinance.
ordinances.
Well, would have to follow county ordinances too, but they're gonna look at county ordinances.
Absolutely
Would
correct.
have to follow a state statute as well.
Right.
But really, the county isn't gonna, they don't know our ordinances, we do.
We do, and that's why it comes to us.
Correct. And they don't know our long-term comprehensive plan, we do. That's why the plan commission starts with this, because they know the long-term comprehensive plan. We should be well versed in our ordinances enough to know if this follows ordinance.
Right.
We don't handle our own zoning, so even this zoning thing that you and I are discussing, we're probably outside of scope. Yeah, we're outside the scope of how we're supposed to be looking at this. It's frustrating to me to get these, and then they don't follow. I don't know how they expect us to rule on something when we don't even think it's the proper paperwork, which is the second time this has happened on one of these tower permits. In fact, isn't it the same tower permit? So, I mean, I'm as confused as ever on this permit, and then we've been hearing about another tower permit that I don't know anything about.
It's the bug tussle. It didn't come in front of the plan commission or the town board. It's a county decision. They couldn't deny it.
They can't deny
But
it.
they've
They
been
denied it
sending things.
before.
Okay, so we never saw
You
that.
never saw it.
Okay.
The plan commission never saw it. But
You
there is
denied
another
it
one out.
before, doesn't come to us.
So, I guess when I say what objections do we have, this follows every town ordinance. It may not follow zoning, and we can note that we caught that,
Correct.
okay? And it follows the long-term comprehensive plan-ish, that would be the gray area. But the long-term comprehensive plan is ambiguous and outdated, if you want to show me one where it doesn't meet it, I'll show you one where it does. So that's my position on this. So again, I'd be looking for a motion. Let's then discuss and let's vote and either pass this along to the county with objections, which is what they're asking for, or whatever. We really have no choice other than pass it along. There's no need to sit on it, which is the same discussion we just had with the plan commission. To table this and sit on it really does nobody any good. We clearly have objections. Now, whether those are valid or not is the question, and that's where I'd ask us to remember that the only objections we should have would either be ordinance or statute or long-term comprehensive plan.
I'll make a motion.
What?
You don't know what it is.
No, I don't care what it is. I just want a motion. Because then we vote on it, we don't have to agree with it.
We can discuss it. I will make a motion that the town board recommends approval to the county of the revised conditional use permit application submitted by Northwoods Connect applicant and Anthony and Kathleen Tillman owners to erect a 190-foot guide tower for broadband internet services as presented. Noting to the county that the community has significant mixed emotions on the presence of this tower. And noting to the county that the town of Three Lakes is questioning whether conditional use permit is proper purpose for handling of this project.
That's all right. You know what?
On the recorder, thank God.
We have a motion, and I'll second. So we have a motion and a second to approve it, with notice that there's mixed feelings on it from the public, and we're unsure if it should be a cup versus an arc. The third stipulation, I guess, I would like to add, or, you know, if we decide to vote this motion down and add the third one, or just go with it as is I would submit that we're unclear, which isn't up to us, but I would like that as part of the record. But we're unclear beyond it just being a cup or an arc. We're unclear whether it's even allowed in single-family residential zoning.
Finally, there comes zoning words.
Correct language. Now, I don't know if we need to say that, you know, call the cup or the arc hole, but. That's good. I think we should add whatever we have, just to get it clear. Do we want to vote on this one as is?
For discussion purposes, I want to ask. What's gonna prevent somebody from 2 blocks down the road or a quarter mile down the road for the same zoning district, for applying for another 100 foot tower? And then where is the line gonna be drawn? And I know you're gonna say it's not up to us.
No, but it is, Jeff. It can be. We would have to create an ordinance to
Correct.
not allow it.
Exactly.
So if we are that strong and feeling
Exactly
we
right.
don't want towers in single family residential, we need to create an ordinance.
Right, I'm just thinking ahead. Like I said,
Absolutely.
I'm neither for nor against it.
I received a letter from Lake, you guys got it to a thing, asking, you know, what was exactly phrased just the way you did. And I said, what stops somebody from building a Shell station right next to a Citgo station? These are private business owners. If somebody wants to put a tower up that competes with the tower 100 feet away from it, that's a dumb business decision. But if it's allowed by the rule of the law, the ordinance, the statute, the zoning, you're right. There's nothing we can do to stop them, unless, to Brian's point, which is like, and maybe we should be proactive on this. And there was another good point that came up that somebody asked me about. Oh, I have notes for it. And I said we needed to discuss it because I thought it was a good point.
Yes.
Yes, it was
yes,
the taking them down. So there's two things, in my opinion, that we should be handling by ordinance. Number one could be, there will be no towers within X miles, X feet, so much radius. These are things that we should be proactively doing as a town board, because ordinances don't last forever. Clearly, we didn't have cell towers and Wi-Fi towers, satellites, you know, when we created these ordinances. So my opinion is to solve that is Brian's exact. So let's solve that on our own, and that way we can eliminate the county from this, which is what we should be doing anyway. And we can handle this on our own. To me, the county we need to look at this objectively based on what the facts are today. And then the county needs to look at it based on what their facts are.
Jeff, I really like your thought at least regarding the scientific or the discussion earlier on. I suppose I could amend the motion, but I don't know if it was long enough as is. So I'm just thinking.
You could just amend it to add.
Right.
And we're questioning whether it falls within single family residential zoning.
But I'm looking for your recommendation on something. I like the point you brought up. I think it's worth presenting to the council. My question is, do you think it's worth amending the motion, or in Sue's letter to the county informing them of our motion? Can it just be a simple addition that explains the motion you
Yes.
made in our.
Yes, and I've
Can that
done
come out of discussion?
I've done that in the past. I'll put the motion in, but then I will.
Seeing that potentially maybe looking at doing our own power motion or ordinance.
Well, that's
Can we
not on
get-
the agenda, so I don't wanna discuss it, put it on for a future agenda.
So,
We're not, we did, the ordinances are
No, I know.
ordinances as they pertain to this.
but at that point, we would get county clarification on their ordinance. Correct,
On their zoning
on their zoning.
ordinance, correct.
So at that point, we would get the answer.
But recognize that their zoning ordinance doesn't say anything within certain, like Jeff's point, and I agree with
I
him.
know,
Other than again, like, why would you put a tower right next to another one? That doesn't make business sense to me, but I've seen crazier things.
In relation to the discussion we're having, I believe the plan commission, I don't remember if the town board was going to participate, but we're attempting Scott or Carl, the other engineer. Anyways, I'm just bringing that up, that might be a wonderful discussion topic.
We've got a motion and a second. As he stated, I would like to add to that, like I just said, that we're not clear on whether it's even allowed in single family for, chapter, was it 8 and 9? 7 and 9?
Nine.
All 954, and then some 9. And then, do we want anything in there that questions what happens when these become obsolete? Or do we wanna?
I think that's important.
I do too, I was surprised, like, that hasn't come up before.
I would have swore that yesterday when I read something about that. that- No, I couldn't find
So
it.
these powers will be erected and provided to Waha.
Well, they have,
Years
there's
down
this,
the road.
there's this one thing in here, Jeff, I just tried to lick my finger through a mask. There was a thing about it, like when it. I know exactly what part you're talking about. It doesn't say anything about deconstruction or demolition or. Oh, here, I actually, life expectancy of the project, gee, I even highlighted it. The life expectancy of the project is at least 10 years, but we anticipate maybe many years beyond that. So let's say it is only 10 years, which isn't that long. I've been doing this longer than that, so
954G-1. We're gonna have to take it off, right?
under under
That mobile,
how do they declare when it's,
Obsolete.
yeah, who's determining whether it's obsolete or not?
once they are no longer used as a functional part of providing telecommunication services and that the provider's responsibility.
So that's in the county ordinance, so we don't need to address that.
But that's under that cellular one, so I don't know if that was, you know,
So we're still unclear whether this falls under cellular, so let's just tell them that we're unclear on how their county zone is on this, let's just make that part of our objections. Okay, does everybody understand what we're sending to the county and what we're voting on? It was to approve with the following, yep, public, adversity,
Motion.
not stipulations. You
Cup versus ARP,
concerns.
Concerns.
public concerns, yeah, I should have said adversity. Well, it's both ways, honestly, you're saying concerns, but there is pros for it too. Cup versus ARP, and then just, we're unclear on the county zoning on how
That
it's
was
applied,
everything.
okay? And I'll send you an email tomorrow citing what
Yeah.
he and I have been talking about, because I read that today. I only read it once, but I thought I completely understood it, and I don't
Right,
understand.
I
So,
agreed, I said, I thought the prohibited should have been down on the other.
yeah,
section.
that's on me, and I apologize, but then again, that's not really our job to figure that out, I just thought I understood it. Is everyone clear? Okay, I'll ask all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? 4-1. Lost my. We are on 6 sub D, the ARP for Wendy and Jerry Van Camp to operate a childcare service in Warren located, on Highway 45, basically. This also went through the PC. This did hit some hiccups in the PC, but again, I felt they fell outside of the scope of whether, again, does it follow our ordinances and our long-term comprehensive plan? The answer to both of those was yes, and then I believe you guys voted last night 5-0.
Yes,
Did you want to pass along the 4-0, whatever it was last night? Did you still want to pass along any concerns, like, again, if it was close to a lake or things like that, or do you feel like that's not necessary at this point, based on what we discussed last week?
I think I do believe some of the commissioners thought it wouldn't hurt just to emphasize to the county that the lake and the highway being in proximity is of concern, but we do recognize, based off some additional information we gained, that there is significant state and there's significant powers that are making sure they comply.
Do you have the motion that was?
We didn't, nobody made a motion yet, is that?
No, what's the motion? Yes, no minutes for
Yeah,
that? Okay, I didn't know if that happened or not.
Well, I was there, so I guess I
I
didn't.
was
see
there as
the
well,
minutes.
so
Oh, okay.
but I lost the minutes, so I'm trying to find out.
No, it's in a second one. Kelly did it today. They would have added to your packet. That
Yeah.
information.
Yeah. And I guess it's not clear in the minutes. I would just like to better explain to the board very briefly. So there were two concerns over it. One was that in the application, you'll note that the property isn't owned by the applicant yet. It's a pending sale, and this is a big part of it. And the commission did get a little hung up on that. But the county did remind us and advise us that is not an uncommon circumstance. And it reminded me of a lot of other businesses in the town where we've been in similar situations where it was part of the progression. So just know that was one of the hangups with the plan commission originally. The other hangup was what Jeff already brought up, just significant concerns over the lake being close by and the proximity of the highway at the time. And I think Chairman is right that perhaps we shouldn't have been so focused on that, but the intent was good. But it was a much easier decision after the county came back with pages of emails that made it very clear that those concerns are already addressed and looked at accordingly. So it wasn't required.
The emails were,
They may be, I didn't look at that portion over.
so, I do it for a motion.
Yep, I'm sorry, I just wanted to clarify that. I would make the motion that the town board, that's my spot here. I'll make the motion that the town board follows the plan commission's recommendation and recommends to the county approval of the administrative review permit application by Wendy and Jerry Van Camp, applicant and proposed owners to operate a child care service business in the dwelling located on the described property.
Motion by Okowski, second by Bone. Further discussion? If there is none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? 5-0. If I was the nice to you, I would move this to the top, but I forgot. I'm sorry. I think I did one time, maybe. I never will again. Now. In fact, yeah, let's start. You got- I'm sorry. Do you have anything for us on this latest pay app?
What do you got?
You guys
Oh, the
ready?
improvement, never mind. I am getting ahead of you. Do you have anything, well, let's talk about, phase 4. I'll just let you take.
I think I'll take over here. Basically you got the spreadsheet. The roads that are highlighted bold black, those are all current, sanitary district roads. There's also attached, map from the sanitary districts that says when they are proposing a replacement of water lines, so we didn't touch anything that would be replaced. I know their plan was 2022, and then there was a second phase of a short stretch of Bohevic and Park Street. That would be 2023. Whether that holds true, if they do, I don't know. But I don't want to touch any of the roads that they would be replacing the water mains. They would cover the asphalt.
Is this, so just so I'm clear, is the blue is where they're saying they don't want us to touch it, which is basically any road that runs.
Yes. Yes. So like on Railroad Street, if you look, they are saying that basically that water line goes to basically our sand salt shed. So where we would actually start doing Railroad Street would be at that point, to the end.
Say that again?
So if you look at on their sanitary district map where it's blue, like on Railroad Street, they're saying that if everything goes well, that they're gonna replace that in 2022. So next year, a year ahead of them, we would be starting right at about where that service is, it goes to the end. Because Railroad Street going to the end, you'd be destroyed with our heavy
So
equipment.
Okowski Park, Lake, East, Railroad,
Yep,
North. We're not touching any of those.
nope. Like North Michigan, we would do North Street to the end. Kepler Court, they're not touching anything there. Huron Street is basically a drainage issue at Huron. So we're just gonna do a mill and overlay. The water actually currently kind of sheds to the library sidewalk. Before my time, I don't know how that got there, but I think Mars really thinks that we need to undercut that like 8 to 10 inches. Well, then you're starting to shed layers in between frost, the water breaks, stuff like that. Anything that's highlighted red is the current gravel road. And that would be going to chip seal with the exception of Lakeview. Only because that is the snowmobile trail. And I guess I don't. Lakeview, or no, not,
He's opposite.
I'm off.
I don't know anything gravel.
No,
Oh, see,
Maple Lake, sorry.
Maple Lake Road is gravel, but also not sanitary district. That's that one.
Yeah, I'm going with red ones that are gravel,
Okay.
going to, chip seal.
What did we have again?
Well, after the fee request, we'll have 2.4 million in 2021. We have 2 million budgeted, and do another 25,000 for crack seal. Currently, right now, we have $529,000 still in our, that's left over from 2020, but we have a pay request in front of you tonight.
For like 160.
Yeah, so there'll be about 387,000 that will roll into 2021's number that will go in with this. I
So
did
we've
put
got this covered.
crack sealing.
Have we even started crack sealing, which we should start thinking about, because some of these are already 3 or 4 years old.
So I'm pulling.
That was the whole point.
Right.
Not on this contract.
Would it be advantageous of us to start working that in, or are they not gonna care?
I don't think they would care really with crack sealing. If the town is happy, but like it's just, that's a maintenance issue. You wouldn't have to work wrapped in the contract at all.
I was just wondering if there would be something, if it makes it, they're not gonna see that as, what's a different line of work.
Yeah, maybe get a bit more competitive bids with the crack filling, but you're also getting engineering for me to write specs and whatnot. So
For crack filling.
Yeah, for crack filling, which is pretty important. It is pretty important.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's,
Well, no, we definitely have to do the crack filling. I think it's telling us don't bother.
I know. So then train Josh how to spec.
I think there is specs on this job.
All right,
Okay.
fair enough. So I'm good with what you're telling us. The only question I had was, did Doug give you any sense of, I'm 90% certain, I'm 50% certain, I'm 10% certain?
I think they needed to write a grant by October,
October of what year?
this last, 2 months ago.
So did they write it?
Jeff from MSA, I believe, said they did write it. They don't find out, they have to get rated
Okay.
in January.
Are we looking to approve this tonight?
What we're looking to approve is just me go ahead with fitting stacks and getting documents together.
I'll make a motion that we approve county country engineering to get the specs and bidding documents together for 2021 road improvements. Motion by Russ, second by Paul. Thank you, good discussion. Carry on my way, Brent.
Railroad Street. Just consideration if it hasn't been already, I realize there's only one private driveway at the end of that, so the residential traffic is very minimal. But, and correct me if I'm understanding this wrong, but I'm under the impression you're gonna basically asphalt it for the heavy trucks up to the town shop. Beyond that, it'll,
We're gonna put 3.5 inches of asphalt from where the sand shed basically is, to where we would turn in to the community garden, where we go to the gravel, everything like that, and then 2.5 inches from that to the end. So it's all gonna be
okay, so that's what I'm trying to clarify. Maybe so the 2.5 inches is gonna be that very, like where that very last driveway is.
Correct. Yeah. it'd
Which how,
be
what, that's like
490. No, it actually
He's
goes.
talking where you turn into.
okay,
So
but
where
then I'm
you,
wondering if it should be beyond that. And the reason I'm saying that is my better judgment tells me that your trucks in Pidlick and Wick, we often let park there.
No, he's going as
He's
far
going
as
all the
you're
way to
saying.
the end. It's
I'm going all the way to
They're
the end.
going to the terminus.
It's just the difference of how much asphalt we're putting in.
I know
Our
that,
big
but I'm
trucks.
also thinking about 80,000 pound trucks going down it, and
They
I'm
don't
wondering,
go, they don't go past where he's saying.
Everyone says that,
they do.
they do,
What are they going
I'm
past?
not worried.
because there's two entrances into
Yes.
that belt. It's like.
If you drive a big truck, the turnaround is only natural, it won't.
I thought you just said you were going to the.
We are going to the end with asphalt. We're going to the first driveway that we always turn in. Have we taken a couple times the other way?
I thought you said community garden, so I guess. I
So, well, then,
misunderstood.
Yeah, that's the road, that's the driveway entrance to the community garden.
but there's,
But
yeah,
there's
then there's
another
one
one.
beyond that.
200 feet, 300 feet of blacktop, beyond that. Going single layer.
So all I would suggest is if it's not an argument of like that either we add more asphalt or to gate off that other driveway if we realistically don't need it. I just wanted to throw that out there.
This is your decision and his decision. I don't think you need to come forward. If you've already determined that this is sufficient, you use this every day. I'm gonna defer to you.
Well, that's fine. I wanted to bring it up for discussion and consideration, that's all. More traffic, I don't even think you're doing
I think I know how much traffic.
it. That's fair.
Um, what else? Anything else? Otherwise, we have a motion in a second. If not, I'll ask all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? 5-0. Thank you. This pay app, as long as you're here.
Yeah, this pay application is a good pay application. About $47,000 worth of work on this, that's mostly an added harness. Plus finishing those up, along with the pay app change order. That's for a snowmobile trail on White House. That is also added to the request. So there's about $47,000 worth of work. All of this pay request is a reduction in retainage. So typically we hold 5% retainage, so 50% of the work. Then we drop down to it. But because all the work is complete, it's like that, great follow-up, what we're anticipating is undone, touch up in the spring is really minimal, so we're dropping it 5%, holding about $17,000.
Thanks again for your help on this, Mark.
Yeah, I would also say, included in this contract, that we agreed to, do the influence on the X.
That's slumping.
Yeah, yeah, so we have a lump sum bid from for that work that is next year, $112,000 and change.
That's what that was.
Yeah. So you'll see that, probably the next and hopefully last year request.
Did they have an opinion on if like, is this gonna fix that or you just don't know?
No, well, we hope,
GeoGrid.
yeah,
What'd you say?
GeoGrid, it's like this mesh that they put down and they just didn't put it down in those.
Yeah,
areas.
okay, yeah, Jim Bowman had talked about that a couple years ago already.
There's grid on there though.
And they asked for this.
Because you can show that, that's why.
yeah, you can see where the geogrid ends, that's where it starts slowing off.
Okay,
So the fix is just gonna replicate, we did that work through MSA, and this is that same design, the same, it's supposed to same cut, the same geogrid through the rest of that.
Okay.
Areas.
thanks again, Mark. I need a motion then. What about, the experts? Well, that was crack ceiling, just exactly If that's not replacement.
I'm sure that there's some already ones.
That's exactly why I brought it up. Did we make a motion? No, I'll need a motion. Motion to approve the contract. Motion by Starkey, second by Slazewski, further discussion? If there is none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? 5-0. Thanks, Mark. Sorry for making you wait full time.
No, it was great, thank you.
Hotel feasibility study, last time we had this in front of us, it was asked if that's more time to review it, and since then Supervisor Bohm brought up a good point, that he doesn't feel it's necessary that the town has to have a motion to accept it, and I would agree 100%. So technically, this can just be a discussion regarding the feasibility draft, and then it would just be filed and sent to anybody who asks, and back to the company that did it, sends it to people on our behalf. So unless anybody has anything that they found in that study that they would like changed, and
Do you ever just get clarification on that?
Sue did.
You're good with it?
Yeah, she was our client during the time that she was putting the study together, and had she caused an accident or gotten hurt,
That
would have been liable.
It was
But
all,
only
during-
while the
during-
study,
Not a result of the study.
but I got no other questions from any of.
That was the only one.
Does anyone else have anything?
I do, we can, and it's nothing major, but just some details that I really corrected, we can put, right? With this work on whatever you guys prefer.
No.
You guys all have a copy, if so, consider the cover. All right. Sue, do you have a copy?
I don't need one, just.
Oh, I know, but this,
I read the thing very
so she can follow me. That I'm gonna be nice to help here. So top right corner, page 5. If you guys feel otherwise, speak up. I would just really, for the sake of the business owner, like to see some recognition that this is a hotel in the town of Three Lakes. I do realize it's not a hotel.
So the triangle.
There is talk of resorts, cabins, tents, campers, everything else. Make mention of the Triangle Motel. In specific, it would be bullet point paragraph 1, 4 is where I first brought that.
Yeah, where they talked about.
Yep. Bulleted paragraph 3, the very final sentence on that same page. The hotel will not offer a pool or elevator. Maybe that's minuscule. My only concern was mention the elevator, because I'm not an ADA expert, building code expert, but I wouldn't, to say a 2-story hotel won't have an elevator, might have to have an elevator. So I just didn't think.
I think what she's saying though is that her information is based on a hotel that will not offer for an elevator. She's not saying that the new one couldn't have a pool.
This is up to the builder.
Right, right.
That's fine. I just wanted to throw that out for
Sure.
discussion.
Okay.
Now I'm on page 16. Top paragraph. Trying to remember what my thoughts were. Okay. Second sentence on page 16. The airport offers a grass runway strip, hangars, and the Sunset Grill. It was just my thought that maybe it's worth removing Sunset Grill, because I take that as like the airport owns the Sunset Grill, or that's possibly town property,
Sure.
which it's not.
Just change Sunset Grill to amenity. Other things out there.
Yep, and Sunset Grill's for sale for all we know next week, might not. I just thought it kind of ages the report. Oh, now I'm on page 18. We'll be done soon. And we could actually move forward. I just had some other stuff and things that came back, but I don't. Page 20. Again, I was just a little hung up on the fact, the very first sentence, at the present time, there are no hotels located at Three Lakes, blah, blah, blah. I just thought it was fair to suggest there is, however, a small traditional motel. I'm on page 23 trying to recall my thoughts. Paragraph above this. I think we'll move on because I honestly don't recall what I was concerned about there. Again, on page 41. Very first bulleted paragraph. At the present time, there is no traditional hotel lodging offered. Three Lakes, variety of lodging options, cabins, cottages, condos, home rentals, blah, blah, blah. I would like to see mention of hotel and town. Out of fairness to the report. Page 46 was nothing. I was just highlighting the conclusion of the entire report. Sentences. Okay, I believe my last point, I'm on page 56, that was the legal question that Supervisor Bowl first brought up, and I guess I just want to better understand. What was the question?
What occurred
Into that?
is that she was our client, the town of Three Lakes. Was the client, Paytech was the client for the town of Three Lakes. So when she was drafting the study for us, had she caused an accident or had she gotten hurt, we would have been liable because we were paying them for the service for us.
I understand that,
But
but it makes
there is no-
perfect sense. That's all.
Yep.
The other way around. She asked for time to review, I reviewed this overall.
And I do have those, so I can certainly.
I appreciate that. Does anyone else have anything? Yeah. I don't think we need a motion. Basically, all we need to do is send those changes back to KTAC. This is on the record, and she can send that out to whoever has requested it. Meanwhile, we should get aggressive. I'm looking at the chamber since they have to be here and letting people know we have that. It's public record and it's favorable. Okay, and anybody else who wants to spread that word too, we'll send it out to OCs and other people like that. Okay. If there's nothing else on the hotel feasibility, I do payment of the bills.
I know state tax, they have by payroll direct deposit on $50,729.09. The electronic payment of payroll taxes was $23,160.15. Electronic payment of retirement was $9,367.42. Accounts payable checks 52643 to 52725 for use to pay expenses amount of $76,151.99. Electronic payment for your portion of employee benefit is $2,183.74.
For a total of $163,600.89. These were distributed to supervisors in advance of the meeting. If you have any questions, please direct them to the clerk. Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion to approve.
My only question, maybe Josh is able to answer Walsh Marine products.
Buoys.
Okay, I kind of thought that. Buoys.
We had like 42 buoys that had issues. I think they've had issues for quite some time. We had pretty good left in our budget balance for that, so they're up to that line that we can get.
That was my suspicion. Thanks for bringing it. With that, I'd make a motion that we approve payment of the bills as presented by Rick Harris.
Motion by Olkowski. Second by Stark. Any further discussion? If there is none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, 5-0. Public comments. Anyone in the back?
I just wanted to thank everybody from the town and the private individuals who helped with the lights this year for the Christmas. I've had so many comments and so many people stop and take pictures of the snowman and the gazebo and everything, and it's just beautiful, and I'm just so proud of Three Lakes.
I'm gonna make a public comment regarding the lights. So I work down Maple Lake Dam Road most days, and I go to work in the dark in the mornings. And the coolest view of town, you're nodding your head, is to look back through the dam. You look all the way up through the park, and those lights on are it's super cool. The first time I saw it, I was like, oh my gosh. And then I realized the other half of what I saw was my mother's house, and the electric meter was going. Anyone else? Yep.
Yeah, I just said, I thought, I live adjacent to the tower site, Northwest Connect Tower site. That's of course, with you guys. I appreciate all the discussion tonight, and I think it's a very balanced discussion. The one thing I'm just disappointed is that, like was referenced, there is another tower that is gonna be placed on the other end of Whitefish Lake. And so a 300-foot lit cellular and internet tower. There is a permit with the county. I mean, in fact, it was interesting. I was just rereading a letter, and it says Atlantic County is required to notify the town involved and all neighboring property owners.
Yeah, I was confused on it because we did get notification. In fact, as soon as she said that, I remember reading this thinking, I think I even commented like, wow, so certain people can just put up a tower. That's why I was lost on when you had said something about the tower, because we had never had a discussion.
Right,
about
and
it.
it's because what Brian was saying, it's a whole different ordinance. And that's actually the reason why the internet tower that was discussed tonight, it's not under that ordinance. It's under single family. The only reason it has a top in single family residential is because it's above, I think, 25 or 30. That's the reason it's a cup in a single family residential. So that being said, it's just, I feel like we've lost an opportunity to really do some planning as a town, because now, if indeed what Jeff Bohm said, that it's slam dunk at the county level.
I don't think it is a.
I don't think it is personally, but we may have two towers, one on each end of Whitefish Lake, doing the exact same thing, except that the cellular tower is that's what everybody, I don't have cell service at my house, I only have it because I have internet. So I own 2 lots down there. I tore down a house and I asked Frontier, I said, if I build something there, could I get even a phone line? No, you can't get it. So, I mean, the fact that they're building a cell tower is actually really, but there's also, it's a dual proposition, plus internet, it's gonna have broadband internet. So it's not like there isn't an option out there, because everybody, in our neighborhood adjacent to it, we are not opposed to the internet. We want everybody to have the internet.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying. I guess all I can say is these are private entities.
Sure.
And if it follows the letters of the law, if somebody said, I want to build a restaurant next to a restaurant or a gas station next to a gas station, I get that these are considered to be more of an eyesore, or whatever your angle is on not wanting a second tower. I understand and appreciate that.
Right.
But we can't necessarily tell someone it's a dumb business decision. You understand what I'm saying?
Oh, I totally get that. But I mean, you guys raised some really good points. You have a lot of questions concerning the project that are unclear. So all I'm saying is I feel like if it is true that there is a permit for another tower, I mean, I guess I'm asking a question, like as a town, not just my neighborhood, because the point was raised too, if this goes a single family residential, what's to stop another one?
Well, I think that
Down
we
the
can
road.
take care
So
of
the
that.
question is, as a town, do we really want 2 towers within a mile of each other? Total redundancy, good. When there's a lot of people that don't want. What people want in our neighborhoods, they want internet. I don't think they're married to.
You can't say that because we also have to report this.
Well, I understand that. I understand.
So again, if these are private business entities, I agree that doesn't make sense to have 2 towers there. I don't think it does personally.
Right.
Secondly, I'm gonna say, why are there 2 gas stations in Clear Lakes? Wouldn't one gas station be way better off by itself? But somebody chose to come in and put up a second one. I can't imagine that if the Shell existed, the guy who wants Sicko would say, hey, can we share pumps and revenue? So you have to realize that these are business decisions. I can't imagine, I'm speculating, right? But somebody who owns 1 tower isn't gonna let their competitor out, unless they're not competing. If it's a cellular tower and they're not selling internet service, maybe. I don't know the answer to that.
That's very true. I guess it's just our point from the beginning has been single family residential.
I don't disagree with that. I think we brought those points up today.
I appreciate that.
It's up to the county to figure out what all that is.
I just thought maybe I could bring a little answer. Kind of, actually work. And One Tesla is putting up a tower, but it's a cellular tower for 8. They're just building, they're not bringing wireless. That's all it. Northwoods Connect does on reserve. That's what they have. Just another quick thing that you had mentioned. Removal of towers. It's actually many that are property owners about putting it back to where the land was when this swing started. So it does have to be back. Everything has to be gone. We speculate 80 years. We have to take it. To start out, it's going to only go around 5. Certainly understand everybody's point of view. I have to just right to my yard, but it went for other people. But absolutely, I understand it's not water tower. You know, it started at $300. If there's something I can answer, anybody after me, certainly can.
I think really where you need to show up is at the county level at this point. The county's gonna know what concerns we have. The county is ultimately the decision maker. All we are is contributors. I do think we did a good job of trying to look at both sides. I know that I did spend a lot of time reading, clearly not close enough, but I did spend a lot of time reading the ordinances and zoning and things like that. The permit itself, I actually read Tony's lease. So, let's just leave it up to the county at this point and see where it goes. I don't think it's a slam dunk, especially given the points that we made. So, I don't think so.
The first permit, when it originally went through, there was.
Is it every? Must be.
I could be wrong.
Is there any other public comment? I'm gonna go this way.
Just want to thank, the town, the road crew, and, they helped out tremendously today with, moving snow for us to fill in some of our ditches and unload, snow on the trails. We've been having a lot of issues with,
I know it's like you're gonna go.
I don't know, people riding them, and Chief Lee and his department has helped us out, and curb some of that, but,
Just
waiting
make
for
the snow,
snow.
Scott.
Huh?
Can't you just make the snow?
You can, just cost a lot of money.
It does look a lot better after you're cleaning it up. Thank you.
I just wanted to, as a member of the community, I want to remind, everybody that I appreciate anyone that comes to me. I've been in those chairs, I've been in those chairs, especially when it's something you're passionate about, regardless of for or against it or stuff in the crowd. But what I really encourage everyone to, I got a hunch you'll be there, someone else. We just had this casual discussion the other night. It's very interesting. When there's a hot button, usually it starts at the planning commission. Usually that's where the most people are. Then it comes to the town board and there's less. By the time it gets to the county, I think everybody's either rejoicing or PO'd and assumes that it's done. I just want to remind people, remember the community, that the county is another huge, part of that process. And I encourage you all to go to those meetings if it's something you're passionate about. Don't walk out of this building or any of our town meetings and assume that it is what it is, because that's not the case. And that's really all I have. Just remember, there is one more meeting. It is extremely important, whatever it is you're passionate. That's it.
Thanks, man. Anyone else? If not, I'd be looking for a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn. Do you notice I looked your direction? Motion by Sargent, second by Sledge. If there's no discussion on this, aye. Aye. Opposed, 5-0. Meeting is adjourned at 7:33.
Kelly's in.
I got that.
No, it's you too.
Okay.